What is going on, everyone? Welcome to episode 223 of Littleroot Lessons. My nephew called me uncle for the first time this week, and I'm joined by my friend Keon Sion, a member of New England VGC. Keon, how's it going?
It's going great. It's been an amazing weekend. Tuning into NAIC whenever I can, and everything I caught. It was such a tournament, man. Like it
It this was
was,
this was so hype this weekend.
yeah,
I'd say NAIC is really the only tournament that I got super FOMO from not being able to go to this year, and
yeah.
just watching everything. I mean, watching Patrick Connors with the Pelipper getting that wide guard,
Oh my
and
god.
I was in tears. I
Yeah,
knew what was going to happen. I was still in tears. I was just very emotional,
yeah.
seeing Pelipper be the Pokemon that takes NAIC this year, and some dumb ice horse, also did things.
Yeah, you've had it going for Pelipper. I mean, all the tier lists, you've been fighting for your life, defending that with all the co-hosts, and I see the vision. We saw what it did, and it gets the crowd going too. Our friend Chris, who was at the venue, mentioned as soon as the stream match was going on for that game 3, and he hits that U-turn, and it goes to the selection, and the whole crowd sees the Pelipper. Everyone was like screaming, like that was the moment that
And
everyone knew it was locked.
yeah, I think that was especially when you saw Patrick's vision of being able to get Aurelian to commit to the Terra Starstorm after terrestrializing, force it into that locked spread move, and pretty much say, I'm going to go and wide guard in front of you. I'm going to threaten getting a +2 with this Chilling Nay, and you're either going to switch and take a massive hit, or you're going to just have to pray for paras. And that is what Aurelian had to do, and it just didn't work. Like the fates were really on Patrick's side, trying to get him to do what Tim Edwards couldn't in Europe this past year at UIC. So it
Yeah.
was just a phenomenal tournament, and we are going to get into a lot of it. But before we get into it, we do have a tournament announcement for next year's NAIC. We
Yeah.
were hoping for an announcement of the regional schedule, at least the fall regionals, like what we got last year post NAIC, but we did not. What we did get is that in 2025, NAIC will stay in New Orleans. So, for those of you who enjoyed partying on Bourbon Street after nights 1 and 2, and just the city and the vibes in general, you're going to be back there next year, and I definitely plan on being there next year, and I'm looking forward to it, and I'm looking forward to seeing everyone there as well.
Yeah, I completely agree. The one thing, I had my own plans this weekend. I had a friend coming to visit from New York. We went to a concert, we went to the beach. I saw a lot of my old high school friends. It was amazing. But seeing all the videos of people on Bourbon Street and all of the vibes in New Orleans, especially going on during Pride, there was just so much good energy amidst all the I mean, I know there was some players that were a little bit scared of the area that is New Orleans, but I think it seemed
It's
so fun
it is better than Columbus in that sense. I remember
for sure.
last year, one of Aaron Navier, one of the mods of Little Lessons, telling me he was a Columbus native, and he told me when I went there, oh yeah, don't go a mile north of the convention center because you'll probably get stabbed. So, I mean, if I'm going to be playing that roulette anyway, I'd rather play it in a real city where there's real things to do,
Hmm.
and not a glorified suburb that is Columbus, Ohio. Uh, so
Exactly.
this is also coming from a very biased big city boy, and proudly so. Um,
Yeah,
so
I will
let's.
say, yeah, I'm
Oh,
definitely looking forward to New Orleans next year because, I mean, there were a couple technical difficulties at the venue that I heard going on throughout the couple of days, what with outages and whatnot. But being the fact that next year all of the tournaments are going to be headed by, I believe, day 2.
that is
I,
correct.
I think I think the ICs themselves are headed by the Pokemon Company themselves, so I don't know if they'll have a tie into that. But we've been getting kind of a slew of technical difficulties in North America these past few weeks, so once they patch it up, I know that venue is just going to be like the spot next year.
So I did hear from another friend of mine who was at the event that the power outages on day one were caused by a city employee driving their vehicle into an electric pole near the venue, and when that happens, you get electrical issues.
That'll do
So
it.
again, not that I can confirm that this 100% was the case, but that is what I heard. And in general, I think that it's just something where next year, I think one of the big things that they need to plan on is just more auxiliary power and backups for the VGC area, because when the power did go out, you still had all of the streams were going, all of the audio on the streams were going, and that was probably because it was on a secondary power source. And I think they just have to go and realize, hey, for these events, we have so many VGC players, 920 masters at NAIC this year, and we need to just invest more into putting power, like just extra power strips. So when it does, if something like that does drop, or there is a outage or something, even for connectivity in terms of like the Wi-Fi connection, that was a huge issue in Los Angeles. You'll have Niantic
I
for
know.
big Pokemon Go events. Oh, you were there for Los Angeles, so you can definitely speak for that. But
Yeah,
I
that
know, like,
was an experience.
yes, but I know Niantic for like massive Pokemon Go events, they'll actually bring in like their own network towers for like, or like bring in tech to provide their own networks for those events, so people aren't killing their data and they aren't going and trying to work with like the public Wi-Fi. So I think that for an event as big as an IC and as an IC at this point, they just have to shell the money out and make those additions. Um, Hopefully, that doesn't mean
Yeah,
that our registration price goes up even more. Probably will, and when it does, you can point out back to this conversation and blame me.
we knew it
So
first.
yeah, I know you guys will. So let's just go over some basic usage stats to start. Looking at the overall day one usage stats, you have I think it's really just the classic Mons, Incineroar, Urshifu, Rillaboom, Raging Bolt. As teams move more towards a balancy comp, or at least a non-hyper aggro comp, these four Pokemon are the four that you're putting on your team in some way, shape, or form. We know what they do, and they're all absolutely amazing. Um,
Yeah, I
Towards
think we. Oh,
no, you go.
I think a main like kind of foresight that we had going into this regulation. I was talking about this to like a lot of my building friends and just people in general. Is that we knew that like going into Indianapolis and the other events that were going on at the beginning of May, we knew that it was going to be leaning very much into hyper offense comps and just seeing like whoever does the most damage the fastest like can just knock everything out on the field wins like first. And we saw that with like the Terra Electric specs, Hadron engine in electric terrain discharge from a ride-on. We were seeing that everywhere right after Indy. And so we all kind of had the idea that the format was going to find its groove, like slow down a little bit towards the end, like by LA, by NAIC, and people were going to find those comps that just suit those key balance pieces. Your Incineroars, your Rillabooms, your Raging Bolts, like they're not going anywhere. They've been so dominant in every regulation that they've been legal. And it's really interesting to see these comps continue to pop out just with like different restricteds, different moves, different items. Like for example, Aurelian's finalist team using like Urshifu with safety goggles and taunt because they really did not want to go up against an Amoonguss. So it's little things like that, little twists that really spice up a metagame that can start to simmer down.
Yeah, even just stuff like, I mean, you mentioned the Rillaboom. You have the Clear Amulet there. I cannot remember whose Rillaboom it was, but we did see a Rillaboom on stream at some point that was a Terra Normal Rillaboom,
Right.
which was, again, that's another tech there to give
I
yourself
believe
an
it
immunity.
actually it won. It was Patrick
It
Connors
was Patrick.
using
Okay,
the
yeah.
Terra Normal at Rillaboom.
Okay, I couldn't remember Patrick's. I mean, we have his pace here, and we will be going through his pace. But yes, it was Patrick Connors, and that's just a way where he can go and click that button, and now he has a Pokemon in Rillaboom that can really threaten a lot of damage with the Wood Hammer into the Calyrex Shadow, and you're forcing it to use its off coverage move, whether it's only like a 50 power drain kiss that does get boosted once they Terra, but you're forcing the Terra there. If it's a Psy Shock or even like the pollen puff, which really isn't doing enough into it as once you go Terra normal. So it does give you a lot of options there. Moving towards the latter half of the top 12, at least the non-restricteds, a Pokemon that I'm super happy to see come back is our good friend Brian Hands. Iron
Hmm.
Hands, number 11 in usage on 16.42% of teams. The Pokemon had an amazing winning percentage with a 55.12% winning percentage for the course of the event. And people have been running this Pokemon mostly in the classic, like standard Assault Vest form. We saw it on a ton of different teams, mostly paired with Miraidon, but we did see it with other restricteds, such as, give me a second. We did get to see it with Terapagos. We saw it with and with both Calorexes. Like this, the really good restricteds in this format, I'd say the top four restricted Pokemon in the format. Really like Iron Hands. It's a very bulky fake out mon. The fighting damage is great into hitting neutral into Calyrex Ice and Miraidon. It's super effective into the Terapagos. And then you also have some other fun options, such as Volt Switch, Ice Punch, and Close Combat. And according to the usage stats, two Brave Souls even brought Body Press Iron Defense.
That is something else. I
Um,
mean, that's
th-
really funny. I was
yeah,
literally about to like talk about Zamazenta and the usage fall off that it had, and kind of like it didn't have the crazy conversion rate that we all kind of forecasted. Um, with the whole meta shakeup that was Los Angeles Regionals, with Shadow Rider finally taking the crown. I guess people were going into it a little bit shaky of Zamazenta, and then that kind of, I guess, allowed for Terapagos to become much more successful.
yeah,
So before I like continue to ramble and yap, I think it's like really interesting that people are looking for like alternative routes for that body press, despite how successful or unsuccessful it might be. It seems like a very like tried and true role on a team just to be able to like set up and steamroll like that, whereas other setup options like Calm Mind have been maybe like a little bit too slow for certain people.
Yeah, and I think it is one of those things where with the Iron Defense Body Press, a lot of teams, I will say some earlier Calyrex Shadow teams. I know our good friend Dawe, uh, when I was doing some practice matches with them a few weeks ago, they were using the Coma O on their Calyrex Shadow team.
Hmm.
And after a while, like I asked them, like, okay, what is the when you're using this, what is your main thing? And they told me, yeah, if I just see a ton of normal and dark types on the team, I just slap this on, click Iron Defense a couple times, and then laugh because +2 +4 stab body press is just knocking all of these Pokemon out, and there's nothing they can do about it. Um,
Yeah.
in specifically for the restricteds, though, we did not see great weeks for Koraidon, Zamazenta, and while it's not a fighting type, Zacian has the Sacred Sword, and I think it is because we did see a increase in the Calyrex Shadow, and it was one of the most popular Pokemon. I think it was a top three restricted in days 1 and day 2, or a definite top four. And when you have a very popular restricted in that Calyrex Shadow that a lot of people are having a ton of success with, it's really difficult to bring in these fighting types into a meta where you might have a 1 in 5 chance at some point in going up against a Calyrex Shadow. Also, we saw a lot of the Terapagos teams. I mean, we can just start going through some of them right now, but you see on Antonio Sanchez's team, the Screamtail is able to pretty much just encore lock your it's able to encore lock your Zamazenta and just ruin you right then and there. While Aurelion has the screens to mitigate the damage, and then you have the Ghost type in Fluttermane and the Fire type in Chi-Yu to just really, really punish all of these Pokemon. But let's not get into the second place restricted. Again, another bridesmaid week from Terapagos. Let's get into the champion. Let's get into the defender of America, Patrick Connors, and his Calyrex Ice team. Before we do that, Jay and Carter can't be here this week. Carter needed a couple weeks off, while Jay is on one of the most deserved vacations you could possibly imagine. But before we left last week, we did ask which restricted that we thought were going to win, and both Jay and Carter said Calyrex Ice. I incorrectly said Miraidon. I think the Pelipper in the corner means that I'm the true long con winner. But that marks 3 events in a row of Jay calling the restricted that wins the event. So if anyone wants to know what's going to win Worlds, ask Jay.
Yeah, they're like a prophet at this point.
I'm going to ask him for lottery numbers after we record.
Yeah, this team is really like, it's got that little bit of spice that like we've seen very consistently, this kind of core of Calyrex Ice Rider, Incineroar, Pelipper, and Urshifu. And it's kind of just been like a revolving door for those like last 2 slots. People were trying out Golden Go, Amoonguss, the Rillaboom we see, the Raging Bolt we see, and just kind of like seeing what looks best into what was so dominant these past few weeks. And I think that the Terra Normal Rillaboom is a really great response to the results that we were seeing in Los Angeles and Bologna. I remember looking at the Bologna usage for like day 2 and seeing literally like 20 teams being Clefairy and Shadow Rider, and that being in day 2 alone. That was like a quarter of the metagame. It was so insane. And having that, just that little option to counterplay, because realistically, like Rillaboom, out of all of the Pokemon on this team, would not be Terra that often. I would imagine it would be the Incineroar, just about like anything else on this team, barring like maybe the Pelipper. All those 4 really value that Terra, but it's very important to kind of just have that like emergency button for a matchup that could be like a little bit precarious, definitely, and popular.
I think one of the other things with having Rillaboom, because we did see in a lot of the previous events, the Calyrex leaning towards more an Amoonguss Incin mode, more that classic balance, the Incin Amoonguss backbone of a team, similar to the Iwafushi teams of Regulation F, and just, I mean, in general, Incin Amoonguss is a classic VGC backbone to any team defensively. But with my prediction of Miraidon, I thought that it was going to have another resurgence, and Patrick might have thought that in the same way, because the Rillaboom does do a lot more into that Miraidon than it does into the than the Amoonguss would. So having the Rillaboom there, not only to be a plug for that Miraidon matchup, along with the Raging Bolt, and have that Grassy Surge, but then also be super useful in the Cali S matchup with the normal Terra. It just makes Rillaboom an amazing Swiss Army knife going into the other top tier restricteds, and having a single Pokemon be able to play different roles in different matchups is really, really great. Also, I don't know if it ever came down to it. Maybe Terra Normal Fake Out actually picked something up, or put.
That's a crazy thought. There. I didn't even like think of that. But
I think that's
very well could have.
It might Terra Normal Fake Out might have just been a little bit. Patrick, if you're listening to this episode, let us know if you got a KO because Terra Normal Fake Out gave you a bit of chip.
Oh my goodness! And I will say, one of the things that Rillaboom has over the Amoonguss that's like very often on these team compositions is that U-turn, and I think Patrick made an excellent use case for that, especially in the game 3 of his set against Aurelion, being able to leverage, as you mentioned earlier, the Terra, playing so like cerebrally, forcing Aurelion into this uncomfortable position, and then being able to utilize that slow pivot, soak up the hit, and then bring out the Pelipper with the sash intact was just so important there. That's something that an Amoonguss, unfortunately, isn't able to do, because I would not want to see an Amoonguss clicking U-turn or parting shot.
I mean, that would be fun for like the first 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I'd say for us as you, Jacob, and I, as we share the one brain cell, and that one brain cell loving to only click fake out, parting shot, spore, rage powder, and a setup move. I think like
Yes.
if we could consolidate that into a single Pokemon, it would be amazing for us.
Yeah, I think I will say we are balanced buddies through and through. But
We
on the
are.
topic of Amoonguss, there's an interesting pickup that I noticed in this tournament that I think is going to be very interesting going into Worlds, and it's the amount of people running Covert Cloak Amoonguss.
So it was Covert Cloak and I will switch over from the team. Actually,
Mhm.
before we talk about Amoonguss a little more,
Right.
the other two things I want to bring up with Patrick's team is the fact that he's using the coaching Urshifu Rapid Strike and the booster energy Raging Bolt, and those are two techs that we really haven't seen all too often. They not that we don't see them, but they're just a little more uncommon, and I think they're just cool techs. The coaching to just give Calyrex even more damage is always fun. And I think that
Hmm.
the booster energy just makes Raging Bolt a more immediate threat. You can't really pivot as well as you want to with it. Maybe
Yeah.
like a Life Orb could have helped with that, but at the same time, you probably want your Raging Bolt to just stick around on the field, and the Life Orb doesn't let you do that while the booster energy does.
Exactly. I will say, a few weeks ago in my preparation for LA regionals, I was going to many locals. There were like 3 or 4 that I went to within like a 4-day span. And in one of them, I ran against Zach Weed, who was using, it was a Zamazenta team, but it had a Pelipper on it. And it also slotted like the booster energy Raging Bolt. And I think on those rain comps in particular, it's just so strong. I like, to be fair, my team couldn't really deal with Raging Bolt that well, and that was kind of like a wake up call. I think people are leaning still so much into the Assault Vest Raging Bolt, but I think with how important Rillaboom is becoming to team comps, it's definitely still like a reasonable shout, because those like booster energy boosted Thunderclaps or Thunderbolts or Draco Meteors, even if you like stack on a Terra Electric to it, like it is devastating. People are so busy respecting on this team the wide guard, the safety goggles instant, the possibility of coaching next to Ice Rider, that it kind of just diverts the attention away from what is like truly one of the scariest things on the team, and it's that Raging Bolt.
Yeah, hopefully the TPCI for Los Angeles, the LAIC giveaway, they give us Patrick's Raging Bolt. They will give us the Pelipper, but I hope that it's
Yeah,
the Raging Bolt because I need a Raging Bolt.
please TPCI,
Please.
help a
We're,
man
we,
out.
we are begging. We are starving.
You want more Iron Leaves raids?
Here's another Walking Wake. Yeah. Before we go to Aurelian's team, just bringing up what you were saying with the Covert Cloak
I actually
on the
don't think
Amoonguss.
that Aurelian did have it, but I saw it a lot.
So Aurelian did not have it. I'm actually trying to see. We did see it a lot. We did not see the Covert Cloak. Did we see? No, we did. We're going to skip around. We did see the Covert Cloak in ninth place on Justin Burns' team, also running an Ice Horse team. So it's kind of good that we're getting the Ice Horses together. Justin
Mhm.
Burns, VGC veteran, you know him. Um, you honestly you expect him out of a lot of the players who finished in the top 8. This is someone where it's like, oh, he said, okay, Patrick Connors finished one, you would have said who, and then you said, oh yeah, Justin Burns made top 8. You're like, okay, that makes way too much sense. Um,
Yeah,
Justin went,
Justin, so consistent this regulation
yeah,
in particular. I believe at Indianapolis, LA, and here has cut all of these events with Ice Rider. Like this is the Ice Rider guy.
yes. Well,
It's
not.
been insane.
I will say, just as a consistency, Patrick has the ring. So we can argue. They can
That's
argue.
true.
They can argue between themselves who the best Ice Rider player is. I mean, in general, these tub players like Justin Burns, um, and the rest, they've all been hyper consistent this format. Um,
Yeah.
the Calyrex is a little different with the Terrifier. We go with a Dark Fu over a Water Fu, and you also go with the Iron Hands as your secondary, as both your secondary electric type and secondary AV Fake Out user, over the Raging Bolt and the Rillaboom, and that's a Ditto.
Sure is. That
Ditto
is a ditto.
Ditto snuck into the top 12 of day 2 usage as the 12th most used Pokemon. So the high level players really like using this Pokemon. I talked about this last week in the pod. I used Ditto for the first time. Oh, I use it seriously for the first time and actually had my brain going at the Westboro PC. And this is a very fun Pokemon. And I think it's very dependent. I think it, to an extent, is very meta dependent. In the meta game where Calyrex Shadow isn't as popular, I don't think Ditto is as strong because honestly,
Hmm.
like the Pokemon you want to copy with this is Calyrex Shadow Rider. Like you get this to switch in on the Cali S on after they got a Grimnay boost, and now you have your own Grimnay boosted Calyrex, but it also has a choice scarf. I mean, what else? Like like this thing is able to rip through teams if your opponent just lets you get the Ditto in for free and copies one of your boosted like their boost restricted.
Yeah, I believe actually in the day one stream, there was a stream match, Jody Azarelli against Wolf Glick, and Jody was running the same team as Justin Burns. They were working on it together, and exactly what you said played out, I believe, in game two when Jody took it. It was because he was able to leverage that Ditto in the back and switch it in, like basically sacrifice a KO, let Wolf get the Grimnay boost, and then switch in Ditto on that slot, being able to copy the boost and hit faster. So that it's just so very much meta dependent. I completely agree with you. I think that specifically the one thing that I've really liked about restricted formats, despite my like rather limited experience with it, is that it really allows for a bunch of these different Pokemon that wouldn't really be considered conceivable in earlier metas to become so dominant and have these roles that they can just slot in instantly to a team. And as we mentioned before, the format slowing down and favoring a bit more of these setup strategies with like Calm Mind Terapagos, for example, or the like the incessant setup Calyrex teams that we've been seeing. Ditto is an incredible pick right there to be able to just copy those boosts and hit harder and faster.
Yeah. But the main reason why we picked this team out is to talk about the Covert Cloak on Amoonguss and the rise of this item and another item that we will get to when we go over our next team. The Covert
Right.
Cloak Amoonguss, it's with the amount of fake out that is uh, in the format, a lot of teams now are running double fake out in order to support whether it's the Calyrex I said in the Trick Room, the Calm Mind Terapagos, the Calm Mind Nasty Plot, Calyrex Shadow uh, being able to have that automatic redirect button that can't be faked out, the ability to just immediately threaten a turn one spore or get that all important pollen puff to keep your Pokemon alive so they can get another attack off the next turn. It just gives Amoonguss so much more viability and so much more flexibility in what it's able to do. Um, not
Mm-hmm.
being not being forced to click protect is so important, and it is such a boon to a Pokemon like Amoonguss, and I think just any Pokemon. It's so weird that Covert Cloak is an item that we really haven't seen as much in the format, even as popular Fake Out has been all throughout the Scarlet and Violet metagame. It's always been like the eighth or ninth item that you'll think of for your team, and there's always I mean you always need the clear amulet if you're using a physical attacker. The goggles are all important. Your choice items, your assault vest, your focus sash, so on and so forth. That the Covert Cloak gets left behind, and it's finally in this format, we're starting to see the Covert Cloak be a massive bring for the Amoonguss and other Pokemon.
I also think that the reason why Covert Cloak is beginning to have an upward trend on Amoonguss is because the two most common items on Amoonguss have kind of lost their value in this format. The obvious one being Citrus Berry kind of gets de-incentivized when it comes to all of these Calyrex teams that are running rampant. You're not finding yourself in as many situations where you can eat that berry as opposed to just being able to get a comfortable switch out for recovery. The other popular item that people were really often running on Amoonguss would be that Rocky Helmet. And I think the biggest boon of that Rocky Helmet was to be able to break focus sashes. But looking at the team compositions that we see today, the most often, the Pokemon running Focus Sash are those that don't really have contact moves. So Amoonguss can't really capitalize on that. Like the Whimsicott, for example, that's so dominant. The Pelipper's that we've seen. The only real ones that you see are the Urshifus, which, to be frank, like these teams can kind of deal with already.
Yeah.
And then there's Chen Pao, which isn't that scary to this team as well.
Yeah, and even then, like the Chien-Paos, in order to get around it, they have been using Icicle Crash,
Mm-hmm.
especially with the general power level of the format increasing. The defense and bulk of these Pokemon just naturally go up, and it's honestly gotten to a point now where Ice Spinner might not pick up the KO, and if you're looking to get certain rolls, you have to run the Icicle Crash, which does double as, like, while you do have the chance of missing, it does come with the added benefit of ignoring the Rocky Helmet. So that definitely opens up the opportunity for other items that the Amoonguss can have, such as the Covert Cloak, and the other item that we saw was the Mental Herb on the sixth place Antonio Sanchez's team. Mental Herb Amoonguss was a pick of the casters as well. I can't remember who it was, but one of them, like on the view, it was like Pokemon that the casters always do, the Pokemon to watch out for. Like one of them didn't put a Pokemon, just put a Mental Herb, and he was talking about how a lot of these teams now are bringing Taunt to stop the Trick Rooms to really punish a Moongus, and Mental Herb means you have to either double taunt me or you're going to waste a turn to taunt me once. And the Mental Herb is also amazing to stop the Encore that we see so often with Whimsicott and the Pokemon on the top left of your screen on Antonio Sanchez's team, the Screamtail, doing an Encore Disable Lock.
Yeah, I think that I was going to bring that up. Like, the Screamtail has started to become very scary, especially on these setup teams. And the person who pointed that out to me, our friend Jacob Lintner, who proceeded to just absolutely destroy me every time I saw that Screamtail. You know, it's such an interesting meta development being able to kind of lock out those choice lock Pokemon that are so popular. Your Miraidons, your Urshifus, yeah, it's become such a pivotal piece on these setup teams in order for them to kind of keep that momentum. And again, like that creates more of a use case for Mental Herb on Amoonguss, aside from the taunt Incineroars and the taunt Urshifus we've been seeing, and even a Rillaboom or a Landorus from here or there that will occasionally be surprised, like carrying that move. It makes them have to burn through a turn, either getting that taunt off or knocking it off before you can present any real pressure to what the Amoonguss wants to accomplish.
Yeah, I think the other thing with the Screamtail is that against it, as a way to allow the Terapagos or really any set of Pokemon to set up, is if you're going against another setup team, you can go and either disable their setup move and stop them from being able to snowball, or you can just Encore lock them in that slot and then use your partner Pokemon, whether it's your already boosted Terapagos, your Urshifu Rapid Strike, you start Will-O-Wisping and Parting Shotting the other Mon. You can kind of make a soft lock where they have one slot stuck and the other slot you're able to just continually double down on. What could be really nice with that is if you are able to keep the Screamtail safe and keep that lock going, you can now have the Terapagos just stay in its Terra Shift form and just click the single target's Terra Starstorm instead of being forced to go and use your terrestrialization on it. Because you're able to just focus down on a singular slot throughout the entire game instead of needing that spread damage to get the most out of your Pokemon.
Yeah, and I will say it definitely becomes a bit scary in terms of the setup mirror. I ran Calm Mind Terrapagos at LA Regionals, and before then I was doing a lot of prep on ladder, and Screamtail would be scary at first, but then there would be times where they just encore me into Calm Mind, and they didn't have like physical attackers to be on the field to be able to take advantage of the fact that I was locked into a move that just maxed out my special attack and special defense. And so it's something that you have to be really cautious about how you use it. I feel like that's the learning curve that comes with Screamtail, is that you really have to know when you want to click that encore, when you want to click that disable, or when you just want to preserve with protect and kind of read through what you think your opponent's going to do. Because you will hold so much pressure with that Pokemon, but it's very dependent on your opponent's reaction.
Yeah. And I think it also depends on that strategy. It definitely is team dependent on what you brought and what your opponent brought. I was helping a friend of mine with some test matches, and they were using a setup Calyrex Shadow team. They wanted to test into a similar setup Terrapagos team to this one. And the issue they ran into, they had a Whimsicott that encored me and into Combined. But I was looking at them like, okay, well, your restricted still can't hit mine. And so I'm going to continue to ignore your Calyrex, and I'm going to focus down on the one or two Pokemon you have that my Terrapagos is afraid of, and then we're just going to go from there. And that's kind of what happened. So, I mean, like, if you're going to do this into another Terrapagos, now you can bring in the Urshifu Rapid Strike, and you can always just close combat that down, and you're set right there. But for other matchups, you have to just watch what you're doing, watch what you're locking stuff into. With that being said, if you were playing this team and up against a set of Calyrex Shadow team, honestly, Encore away, they can't hit your Terrapagos. Their best move is already useless, so the Mon isn't as great into it. So that's just understanding where your potential board position can be compared to what your opponent's board position can be. So we did see the sub Terrapagos do very well with this top 8. And in second place, we saw the well-known Specs Terrapagos do insanely well. Aurelian Sola, I believe this is his third finals appearance this season. And talk about always the bridesmaid, never the bride. Like, when you've made finals this much, I honestly, I feel like if I had to pick who's going to win Worlds this year, I'm going to go with Aurelian. I don't believe in the concept of being due or something's due to happen. It doesn't exist. With that being said, Aurelian has shown consistent success in multiple formats of Scarlet and Violet VGC this year. And at some point, all of that compounded success, that consistency, is going to make you an amazing pick for an event such as Worlds.
Yeah, I completely agree. Just seeing this level of consistency from players, that it's just so remarkable. It's something that keeps me super motivated, seeing anyone from the Aurelians who are so consistently like cutting and making finals, to the surprise like winners, the surprise victors like Patrick Connors, and even, a couple months ago seeing Tim Edwards come. I mean, he was from New York, so the scene there is crazy, but practically coming from nowhere and being able to just like get finals at one of the craziest events of the entire season.
He made finals at an IC before he made finals at his own locals.
That's something a lot of people around here in New England could almost relate to.
Oh, so big time!
I definitely get that.
Yeah,
but
yeah. With Aurelian's team, I think one of the interesting things is I was talking to Pengi, I think it was like a week and a half ago, about a set of Terrapagos with Volcarona, and he's like, "Oh, I think Grimmsnarl's super cool with like the setup Terapagos." Well, I don't know if Aurelian was reading your DMs or not, but he decided that the screen's Grimmsnarl was great with Terapagos, just not the setup version. I think they said it on stream the first time Aurelian played. The ability to bring the defensive aspect of the game with Grimmsnarl, and then instead of having to just wait and set up, which is what you would expect with the screens team, saying, "Nah, I'm just going to click the funny buttons and also be bulky at the same time." It works. It works really well.
Yeah, it seems like it was very successful. I think I'm still of the personal opinion, maybe this is the balance buddy in me, but I feel that the choice spec set just offers like kind of limited flexibility when it comes to your sort of strategies, because you're so vulnerable to fake out and just you can get doubled into like it's nothing. And I mean, I don't know. The thing with Calm Mind is there's like two sides to the spectrum of using Terapagos. There's the people that lean a little bit too much into the longevity of Terapagos, going for like the Rillaboom, the Comfy, and the leftovers, going for Calm Mind, like never doing damage, but just staying on the field forever. And then there's the others who don't care about Terra Shell at all and just go for the all-out offense and just use it as a piece that can just gun straight for the other restrictors, for the other pieces on the other person's team. And I think clearly this mode was what was most successful, most dominant this weekend. It showed that, really either you can go either way, but I'm still a fan of the middle ground with Covert Cloak. I'm gonna
Yeah,
say.
I definitely am. I think it's just because we all build together. But yeah, I'm in that same boat with the Covert Cloak as well. I do see the benefit of the Specs Terapagos. It does give you that balance of I still want to play a naturally bulky Pokemon, but keep up with the offense of these other Pokemon in the format, whether it's the Calorexes or the Miraidon. And you also do have other ways to just get your damage up and just be a massive threat. Um, it's you only have one fake out a lot of the time, unless you lead both Instant and Rilla at the same time. You usually only have one fake out live, and when you're threatening a Surging Strikes and a Starstorm or whatever, any of these moves that you use clicking is just going to suck. Or it's like, you're going to either let me do damage, or I'm going to set screens with the Grimmsnarl, and nothing's going to, and like you're not going to be able to get your turn off. And we even saw that in game two, where on turn two, Patrick said he made the choice. I don't want to focus on this Terapagos, because I think that you setting screens up or you clicking foul play into me is scarier than whatever the Terapagos is going to do this turn. And one of the things with the Spectre or just Dropghost teams in general is that people are always so tunnel visioned on this is the Pokemon that is going to terastallize, and 90% of the time Terapagos is going to terastallize. But Aurelian being able to recognize, I don't need a spread stellar Starstorm. I need my Grimmsnarl alive this turn to avoid the fake out and go after it with the foul play. And that's like him making them making that read, going for the Terra Ghost and getting rid of Patrick Calyrex on turn two, honestly winning game two on turn two in that play. That's one of the amazing aspects of this team, where that pressure can come from so many different places in so many different ways that it can force you to make plays that might not be like, I wouldn't say unoptimal, but not what you would expect.
I do think that the merit to Terapagos using the choice spec set is that it does have much more flexibility in terms of the terrestrialization of the rest of the team, because the way it stands, like Terapagos can just launch off a specs single target Terra Starstorm and just pick something off turn one. Most people don't really like expect that to just happen. But the thing with specs and not needing to like set up or lean into its bulk as nearly as much, allows for it to let the rest of its partners be much more flexible. And I do think the Grimmsnarl also definitely allows for that. I think the screens are super important here. The main thing that, like, seeing Grimmsnarl and Terapagos together, one thing that might kind of suck to go against would be that Urshifu. And I think that the booster speed Flutter is an incredible pick to kind of help you get around that, alongside the Iron Hands being able to fake out a potential like Sash Urshifu. Everything on this team seems to blend together super well. And I think it comes down to these sort of move options, the item options, the really like unique things that people are starting to lean into as the restricted season favors certain Pokemon and certain strategies over others.
Yeah. I think another cool tech with Terapagos is the Tri Attack as the third attack instead of, I mean, as the fourth attack instead of what we usually see in that slot being a move like Hyper Beam. And it's just another way for the Terapagos when you aren't Terra to have a stab option that has more than just 8 hits. The Terra Starstorm, as good as it is, you only have, as long as you max out the power points, you only have 8 of them. And if for some reason you go up against someone who has pressure on their team, is there Mewtwo? I think, yeah, Mewtwo's probably the best.
Eternatus.
Eternatus, thank you. Eternatus has
Mhm.
pressure. Oh, you would fit in well with this group, pulling Eternatus out there. I can hear Carter and Jay just like doing like the heel click right now, because Eternatus was said into a Littleroot Lessons microphone. Yeah, so like that's a way where into Eternatus, that Terra Starstorm, you only have 4 of them, and then you're struggling. So to have a consistent stab move where you might have 16 to 24, so wherever that Tri Attack falls, and then you get to also throw in some RNG roulette. Maybe I'm burning you, maybe I'm freezing you, and then you're just done. That's just like another fun little option with the Terapagos on this team.
Yeah, I feel like this team, personally for me, has a little bit too much gambling going on between the Overheat, Heat Wave, Chi-Yu, the Thunder Wave. But I think Tri Attack's definitely like the fun side of RNG, where just like I'm gonna hit you hard, and I might also burn you, and I might paralyze you. Like I might freeze you for 10 turns.
Yeah,
like
we're gonna find out together.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Also, for you, if you are running Heat Wave and Overheat on your Chi-Yu and it keeps on missing, just love your fish more. If you love your Pokemon, they hit for you. My Chi-Yu never misses, only when it matters, though.
Literally. Just gotta max out your friendship. Take it to a picnic, give it a good sandwich, and you'll be sailing straight to top cut.
And not just like the pre-made like sandwiches that you can pick. Like actually sit down and make like a nice sandwich. Get the prosciutto, the fresh mozz, some nice peppers on it. I might be making myself a sandwich after we record.
Fair enough.
2022 World Champion Eduardo Cunha Edu is the sole Calyrex Shadow that made top cut, finishing in 3rd place at the event. Edu traveling over the Atlantic to try to take this event with a very, I'd say, relatively standard Calyrex Shadow balance team. The Citrus Berry has been something that we've been seeing increase a lot. We brought it up in the last episode that in Los Angeles, the Citrus Berry on Calyrex was big. Looking at it right now, Citrus Berry was the #1 item on Calyrex at NAIC at 31. 31 of them ran Citrus Berry, which is about 23%, just edging out Focus Sash at 18.8% and Covert Cloak at 18%. So
very interesting.
Yeah, the Calyrex want to be super, super, super bulky. They want to just live everything. Honestly, they want to trick you into bringing in your Scarfed Urshifus because you're thinking, I mean, doesn't work as well for Edus, but against the Draining Kiss Calyrexes, do not bring your Scarf Urshifus because unless you have your Terra and the Rain going for you, you're not going to pick the KO up, especially if they're Citrus Berry, and then they're going to click Draining Kiss into your Urshifu and undo all the damage you did, and also undo your Urshifu's ability to breathe.
Yeah, I will say,
you know that. You know that from experience.
I know that from experience. My not so favorable game 3 against Adisubra Los Angeles, which shout out to him for making top four, an incredible run. I I had to bring my little taunt Urshifu because I kept getting put to sleep with that thing with that Clefairy, and then boom, like turn one, the Draining Kiss. I'm like, oh yeah, there's that move. You know, the one I've been seeing because I'm running Terapagos, like the only move I've been seeing. But yeah, I could definitely speak from experience there. Back to this though, looking at this
Yes.
team, one of the things that pops out to me, this is I guess a smaller thing, but specifically the Incineroar set, opting for Flare Blitz and Will-O-Wisp. I think one of the things that's kind of been close to predetermined for this format is that Incineroar is running Fake Out, Parting Shot, and Knockoff.
Yes.
And then that last move is the one that you decide between the Flare Blitz, the Will-O-Wisp, the Taunt, Throat Chop if you want to get crazy, things like that. But you rarely ever see Knockoff getting dropped just because of all of the utility that you get from knocking off Assault Vests, Choice Scarves, Choice Specs, and even berries on the Calyrex, for example. So it's very interesting to me to see the Knockoff getting dropped, whereas Flare Blitz doesn't seem like it might have as much of a use case there. But
I think
one,
the main
I'm
thing.
not the one in top four.
Yeah, and Edu has benefited of the doubt being a former world champion. It is weird that this is the first time in weeks where we've seen an Incineroar actually want to be a fire type and do fire type things, both burn and do fire type damage. My guess, if I'm just going with that, is Edu was just in general expecting a rise in grass type Pokemon that were going to be weak to that Flare Blitz. And when you are looking at the usage stats, you have the grass type Rillaboom is third in usage, the grass type Whimsicott is sixth, the grass type Amoonguss is ninth, and you still can hit the Miraidon, which was not the Miraidon, the Calyrex, which was the number one restricted Pokemon, super effective with the fire type as well. Go a little further, Chien-Pao 17th overall. I believe it was 13th if you exclude restricted mons. Like, there's a lot of Pokemon that don't really like dealing with fire type damage. Zamazenta is another one, and the Zacian as well. So maybe it was more so a meta call of I can have the Calyrex handle the like those other like a lot of the Pokemon that are weak to dark are also weak to ghost. There's a lot of super effective overlap, and Edu's probably thinking, I'm just going to have my Calyrex do its job in that sense. And for this fire, water, grass core of Urshifu, Rillaboom, Incin, I want my Incin to actually be a fire type offensively and not just a fire type defensively.
Yeah. Um, I was gonna say the one thing that I do like about this team is that we are going to be setting up. You see, there's the Nasty Plot Shadow Rider, there's the Calm Mind Raging Bolt, which I think is a very, very interesting call to make going into an IC right after Clefairy was like fifth in day two usage,
Yeah,
because that thing, Raging Bolt gets walled by that.
we've
But
we've seen it on stream.
we have, yeah, it's definitely like it's an interesting call, but if you think about it, this team doesn't really care about that comp. You have the smear goal, which kind of invalidates that comp pretty well with the wide guard, with the spore, and being able to protect in the face of those draining kisses as well. Meanwhile, the Calyrex can kind of freely set up alongside the double fake out core that you have going on. And same for the Raging Bolt, being able to set up Calm Minds in the face of those um, so super strong special attacking restricteds, and being able to just kind of put on like three different makeshift assault vests and just go out with your super hard hitting booster energy, like +2, +3 Dragon Pulses and Thunderclaps before they can even move. So I think this team was built very, very well with the meta in mind.
Yeah, I think when you're looking at it between the U-turns on Rillaboom and Urshifu and the Parting Shot and Incin, you have double fake out, you have a redirection, you have three ways to pivot, you are almost always going to have some sort of fake out live or a spore or a follow me live next to whether it's the Raging Bolt or the Calyrex that wants to get that setup moves, those a couple setups moves to boost up and then just go. We saw in the seniors finals that once Calyrex gets itself going, it's going, and nothing's
Yeah.
stopping it. And the a bit like really, I see between the Firewater Grass and the Smeargle 4 Pokemon that are going to get a nasty plot booster 2 onto the Calyrex. And then if you want to go and play a slower mode, I'd say one thing that the Raging Bolt's probably really good into with the Calm Mind is the Terapagos matchups where the Calyrex isn't really as good.
Yeah. I think I think it's definitely one of the scarier matchups for this team, but at the same time, you do have like the Urshifu
Yeah.
helps a lot in the face of that, and yeah, Incineroar being able to, well, I guess not knock off in this case,
No.
but having those crucial pivoting pieces, allowing for something to just stay right next to it and click the setup move and then click the funny button that just deletes the opposing side magically. It is super strong. I think this team is awesome.
Yeah. Going from a balanced team featuring a Electric Dragon from Gen 9 to a Funny Button team with an Electric Dragon from Gen 9, Yan Sim is here for a good time, not a long time. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I was really pushing for him, especially once we got to the top 8, because Miraidon was my pick to win the event, and he actually lost to the eventual winner in Patrick in top 4. So the that top 4 match pretty much decided the fate of the Littleroot Lesson host predictions. And of course, I was on the losing end. Um, I've been using Miraidon for the past month or so, pretty much since Indy. I've been using variants of the Terra Electric Specs Miraidon team, plus Farigiraf and Whimsicott. The other spots have changed, as the spots have changed on many of these teams. God, this seems so. I can't say enough about it. It's so fun. It does so much
Yeah.
damage. It's. Have you ever like clicking Terra Electric, Choice Specs, Hadron Engine boosted Electro Drift, or not screw the Electro Drift, Volt Switch, being able to go and just delete a spot on with using a pivot move, and then bringing in your Chi-Yu to threaten the following turn, your Iron Hand to just be fat and bulky and take a hit, to bring in like a Farigiraf on to turn Trick Room off the next turn. It's the endorphins. It's just
Yeah.
that's the only way I can describe it.
Shortly after like clicking Calm Mind for 9 rounds at LA, I was like, all right, I need to play some VGC in which I don't need to think. So I loaded up my best Miraidon team, went straight to Cart Ladder, and speed ran to Master Ball tier by just clicking Choice Specs Terra Electric, Helping Hand, Hadron Engine, Volt Switch in Electric Terrain, 252 Modest, and just getting rid of anything that I saw. And it's such a beautiful experience. I will say, as a balanced player through and through, to be able to click a button that should not knock out an Incineroar and just taking it straight. It's a beautiful thing.
It really just blows my mind, especially when you throw in the Chi-Yu and the
Mm-hmm.
beads of ruin, making everything even that much more powerful. And the Chi-Yu itself is able to really get some nutty calcs. Of course, any like you can go with the helping hand beads of ruin with the overheat, and it's honestly the same exact thought process. You're going and blowing stuff up. Of course, you have the Urshifu, which, as we all know, Terra Dark Urshifu with the Wicked Blow, always great. The Iron Hands is your Fake Out Mon, your Glue Mon, and it makes a really great partner in Trick Room with the Farigiraf. I'd say the big change is the no protect on Whimsicott, but Yan actually going for light screen and having a single screen on the team.
I think that's actually really interesting because in the context of this team, looking at that AV Iron Hands, which can kind of just take any hit that it wants to. Now imagine those special moves that are already being soaked into an Assault Fest being cut in half. And this isn't particularly a team that cares about the Pokemon that can go through that, like the Urshifu, either one of them, to be honest, because Iron Hands eats both of those. And it's really interesting to see. I was definitely theory crafting with my friends before NAIC, and I was talking a lot about Whimsicott, and I'm like, if you went for the cloak, like what do you put over protect? There's the cotton spore, which is just basically a little extra boost, a little helping hand to your tailwind. And there's other moves that you could go for, like Worry Seed, or even Light Screen was far and away the best option that we could think of. And so it's really cool to be able to see that get this sort of success, to be able to give the thing that can just click the delete button just a little extra bulk to live through another turn to delete something else.
Yeah. Another change with the Fergraph sets is that a lot of the Fergraph we saw this weekend went and dropped the Terra Blast in favor of Psychic Noise. This move has been really popping up a lot. I know early meta, it was something that our group like threw around as an option because we thought that the leftovers setup mons were going to be more popular, and then we realized, okay, Covert Cloak might be a better move like for these setup mons, or a better item for these setup mons, and then we realized that clicking specs damage is a lot better in a lot of cases. But with a lot of the Terrapagos teams that were coming up, especially from the LATAM region, and some of them popping up in like European players who were going down there to play in their special events recently, that like the Terrapagos team, which we did see one in top 8, that they were leaning towards the leftovers, and of course having a way to stop the recovery via Draining Kiss or Drain Punch as well is like super useful, and it could really mess up the planned longevity of a Pokemon, because now you aren't going to have that ability to heal for 2 or 3 turns, and you can really just focus down a spot knowing this is where their health is going to be at. I just thought it was a really cool change on just the way that the Fergraph was used, changing that one move. Gave it a lot more utility for this current meta.
I do think that those little changes on this team really allowed for it to become much more successful into the Shadow Rider balance that we were seeing so much of, especially, as you said, the highest used item on that Shadow Rider was Citrus Berry. Being able to block that, being able to set up Light Screen, being able to destroy, with Foul Play, and also Heavy Slam on the fairies and the Terra Fairies, turning off that, being able to turn off that Draining Kiss option and leave a vast majority of one of the strongest restricted kits completely unusable against you is so powerful. And I really like that adaptation, because generally the Terra Ground, you don't need Terra Ground, Terra Blast. You kind of just need the Terra Ground for those discharges. But I think it was a really cool adaptation into what was starting to become popular. And does this is a general question. Psychic Noise doesn't stop the healing of those with like Covert Cloak, right?
I don't think it does, because it's an added effect.
Right. And so Covert Cloak Amoonguss had another role this weekend.
Yup.
It's very true. You can still switch out. You can still click Pollen Puff.
So the last 2 teams in the top 8, with Yan finishing top and be rounding out our top 4, were 2 different looks at Kyogre, the 5th restricted that made a top cut. So we had 2 different Kyogre teams, and boy oh boy were they different. The first one was ran by Shiliang Tang, who built this with Justin Tang, and I don't know if they built it together, but I know that Moxie Boosted Marcos also ran Kyogre Wo-Chien. I mean, this is like Kyogre. This is 2 Waters and Quad Dark. This team between the knockoff Ensign, the Iron Jugulus, the Wo-Chien, and the Grimmsnarl, this team screams, "I am not losing to a Calyrex Shadow, so help me."
I definitely think that the Quad Dark going into that little fairy, the little peepee, and the Shadow Rider is definitely an interesting adaptation, but clearly it worked. I mean, this just seems like such an interesting team, and I remember watching Shiliang's set, and unfortunately he did get 2-0'd, but there was a point during game 2 where I genuinely thought that Wo Chien was about to 1v4 because it got the Leech Seed on both of the Pokemon, double Leech Seed, there was terrain, and the leftovers. It just got back like half of its health bar in a turn, and I'm just like, this mon sucks, but it's so cool. And it's just like it's like like the Wo Chien is like the balance in the corner, like the Green Goblin mask, telling me like, you want to pick me up, you want to just heal, you want to just like click protect, and you want to click parting shot and get super defensive. But the pieces on this team are so interesting.
Yeah, so when that was happening, I was like, oh my god, like, Shilling might do it. It was reminiscent of, I can't remember if it was a war. I might have been like, it might have been a Worlds back in Sun and Moon when you had, it was a Celesteela did like that 3v1, 4v1. Yeah, I believe it was like World 17 in a cup match. You had a Celesteela pretty much do that, and it was Celesteela versus the world, and it sat there with lefties and Leech Seed and Protect and just did not die. And I was about to be like, Wo Chien's going to do it, and then it got crit. And
Yeah.
and of course, like, Shiliang all did get some Thunder Waves off and was on at that point banking on those Thunder Waves going through, and it just didn't happen. But we were so close to what would have been one of those epic moments in VGC history. And even then, like, this is a super cool team with all the dark types, and they all do different things. The Wo Chien definitely combines with the Incineroar and the Grimmsnarl to just really demolish any sort of physical damage output that they can do, your opponent can do. Well, the Kyogre with the Assault Vest has that special bulk already built in. Honestly, looking at this team, this team does, with all of the dark types, it reminds me of when I played Yichun at Secaucus back in 22, and he went up against me, and he had it was a triple dark team himself. Like, he had the Grim Incin and a an Yveltal, so actually kind of similar. It was Grim Incin and a Dark Flying type, and that's kind of like what this team reminded me of. At least just seeing the mons, I'm like, okay, I saw this before, kind of. And by saw this before, I meant I lost to it before.
Yeah.
The Assault Vest Kyogre is a really cool tech. We've saw it a few times, but to have the ability to bring both Thunder and Ice Beam, so you do have that double coverage along with your Water type attacks, and just like the generic bulk, like we saw some moves just do nothing into the Kyogre.
Yeah, it was absolutely ridiculous. And another thing that I really like about the AV Kyogre here is that it can kind of soak up those hits really well, just get healed by the Wo Chien, and go for that Water Spout at like close to full health. I remember seeing that play out in the stream match where the Wo Chien was just able to freely go for that. I believe it even moved before the Kyogre. I don't know if there was like a trick room up. To be frank, I don't even know Wo Chien's speed stat, but it does not look that fast. It's a literal snail, a wooden snail. But I will say, being able to see that happen was really cool. And adding on to that, the Iron Jugulus on these Kyogre teams I've been seeing is really interesting. Being able to go for that speed booster, Tailwind, and Snarl to make you soak up even more special hits. And also the Hurricane, being able to just freely click, because frankly, I was running Iron Jugulus early Reg F after losing to Babytron running it as Charlotte. I was like, oh, like Iron Jugulus is kind of cool. But Air Slash just felt lacking because you wanted to invest so much into that bulk, but also that speed. You don't really have much room for being able to invest much in the offenses. So there were a lot of times that you missed the KOs on the Urshifus that you're already trying to outspeed and just take out. And Hurricane kind of patches up that issue. It's such a stronger move, and the confused chance is also just fun amount of gambling, as we mentioned.
I think one of the things with what you're saying, the inability to invest as much into the special attack with the Iron Jugulus, because you want to make sure you hit that certain speed stat to make the most out of your booster energy, and also enough bulk where you can live and do things. The fact that Hurricane is a base 110 move, it really patches up that lack of offensive investment. It's the same reason why Pelipper is so good right now and is able to do a lot into the format, even with its subpar base 90 special attack stat. It's because it's being boosted up on 2 stab moves with with a practical base 100 on Weather Ball when you're in the rain, and the base 110 Hurricane. So like the best way for these, not like for Pokemon that you don't invest enough offense into when EV training them, you can just make up that investment by using a move with triple digit base power to just counteract that.
Yeah, entirely. And I think the main thing that I ran into when I was running Kyogre is that defense stat. It does not want to go against a Rillaboom or, quite frankly, anything that can hit it for a super effective physical move. But being able to have not only that Incineroar, but the Tablets of Ruin on that Wo-Chien to help offset that is such an interesting take on these Kyogre teams that have been running rampant. Because having the added option of not only being able to like shrug off the special attacks, but having a better time into those physical attacks with the intimidate, with the tablets, with the screens, and then being able to pollen puff the 20% that you take after all of those debuffs is just really something else. And I think this team is really speaks to me mainly because of this sheer amount of damage mitigation that's going on from literally 5 of these slots.
Yeah.
Is really something else.
Yeah, because you also throw in the Snarl on the Iron Jugulus as well. Like there's
Exactly.
there were moments where there were hits that we thought on screen, it's like, okay, that should be like 60-70%. It's like 15, and it you started in the green health bar and you're still in the green health bar, and it was like moments where you just saw, okay, Shiliang's going to win. When is he going to win? Might be in like 7 turns. But as long as he's not crit out of this game, he's going to win. They are like the damage trades are very lopsided towards him.
I think also one thing about having all of this damage mitigation on the team is that it messes around so much with damage calcs. People who go into the higher skilled or players that have had more time to prep and knowing all of their lines and knowing how much they do to something, if they take it out, when they take it out, when you have to face something with you have not done your tablets of ruin calcs.
No.
You haven't done your AV Kyogre when you're snarled behind light screen calcs. You don't know how much you're doing, and the players that try to write those things down in between matches aren't going to be able to like retain that information as well, because it's like, okay, so I did this amount of damage with these 4 multipliers in effect, and you're spending all your time trying to figure out how to get around that when you also have to play what's in front of you. So I think it's really like all of this mitigation is almost a mind game in and of itself. And I think that's really cool.
It's the opposite of the Miraidon, haha, calc that bozo. You can't. It's going at it in 2 different ways. In one sense, you're like, I can't calc a way to break this offensively. In the other way, it's like, there's no way I'm living this at all.
Yeah, I definitely want to run some calcs later of this Terragrass Kyogre with an AV against Miraidon with your screens up. I mean, I'm still probably going to be really sad at those numbers, but they'll be a little bit better. Maybe it'll be a roll.
Yeah. The final team, all the way from down under, Henry Rich coming in 8th place, rounding out top cut, bringing his own take on Kyogre. With Terra Ghost Hydro Pump, Terra Ghost to avoid the fake out, and of course Hydro Pump there to play around all the wide guards, and a few other unused non-used choices. You have the Choice Scarf Terra Ground Landorus with double ground coverage, Sludge Bomb, and Grass Knot. You have a Volcarona, which was a star of Most of day one, we saw a lot of Volcaronas do very well at NAIC. A great tech the into Pokemon like Zamazenta that could give the Kyogre some issue, and that is an Overquill.
Sure is. That thing, I have we seen it in
Nope,
competitive play like ever up until this point?
I don't think so. If you went and did really well with Overquill, and let me know and call me an idiot. Because I when I saw it on the day two stream, because Henry was on stream, I think it was round 10 or 11. It was early. It was early Saturday morning. We saw him on stream before the top cut, and they said, "Oh yeah, he brought an Overquill," and everyone went nuts. It sucked because the two times Henry went on stream and brought the Overquill pretty much did nothing. I can't remember what his top cut matchup was, but I know in the Swiss matchup, he went up against the Miraidon team, and everyone's like, "Oh, it went Terra Poison. Is it going to live?" And then it died. It died to a Volt Switch. Um, what Overquill is bringing to the team is Acid Spray plus so it's a fast Acid Spray, and which allows your Choice Scarf Landorus and your Kyogre to just pick up KOs that it should not pick up, because people aren't calking an Earth Power from Landorus or a Water Spout at -2. Mostly because if you are calking that, the answer is you're knocked out.
Yeah, I think this is definitely leaning more into the haha, you don't know your calcs
Yeah.
kind of thing, where it's just, as I mentioned before, these restricted formats allow for these unforeseen picks to just come straight up out of the water. Overquill has been legal since Worlds last year, and we have not seen it yet until today. And that's because this higher power level format allows for so many different things to become usable. I think that this set in particular is really cool. And also, the Volcarona is definitely a bit unorthodox as opposed to what we've been seeing rise up. I think specifically in the Latin America scene was kind of when it made its breakthrough in this regulation so far. There were very many people using the Quiver Dance set that were successful with it and kind of just using it as that sweeper. Whereas this allows for Volcarona to become much more of a supporting piece as a redirector that can burn those Urshifus with a Terra Water. You do not want to take those Surging Strikes without that Terra Water,
No.
especially in the rain that you're setting. Having Bug Buzz for just like a little bit of damage, you can't really go for that overheat on a rain team. And then the Will-O-Wisp kind of filling in an interesting sort of role compression, I want to say, between like Incineroar and Amoonguss.
Yeah.
That you can't necessarily fit both slots on this team, but it has kind of like the sweet spots of both of what those Mons want to do for this sort of comp.
Also, I'm just going to say this while I was thinking of it. The other thing with Overquill and why I do think this is actually a really great call, not only do you have the Acid Spray, but a lot of the Calyrex are going to use Fairy as their Terra type. We can just pull that up real quick and see where it's at. One moment. So Calyrex Shadow, the most popular Terra type on it was Fairy at 68.42%, followed by Ghost at 29%. So out of the 133 Calyrex that were in the tournament, 120 of them were either Terra Ghost and Terra Fairy, which meant 120% of them were always weak to either Gunk Shot or Crunch that this Overquill was carrying. So with the Swift Swim being able to outspeed the outspeed Calyrex in the rain, and having the immediate ability to threaten with a Gunk Shot or threaten with a Crunch, depending on whether they've invested the Terra or not, I think that's a really, really great way to use the Overquill. It's one of the few Swift Swimmers that isn't a Water type. It has that dual Dark Poison type, which is a relatively unique typing. And that is just another meta call where we are going into this Calyrex Clefairy meta, and offensively being a dark type and being a poison type is super useful. Defensively, those types are useful as well. And while Overquill didn't have that spot in previous formats, at this moment right now on this team, it's actually a pretty useful Pokemon.
Yeah, I think this is kind of one of those examples where people make such direct and successful meta calls into what has been popular. And as you said, this is kind of just a direct response to all of those scary Shadow Rider teams that have been going on. It's just, oh, let me slap on this mon that just kind of completely de-incentivizes that entire mode. Being able to go for like the acid spray into the Sandsear to just ruin a Clefairy or a Shadow Rider's day. And I think it's a really interesting meta adaptation.
Yeah. So that does round out the top 8. However, we do have 2 other teams. This isn't a New England only show, or at least this New England only host, without bringing up the 2 New Englanders who not only made day 2, but brought some very unique Pokemon onto their day 2 teams. So this is kind of covering a mix of like doing the Carter's Corner, and also me being like, I'm going to talk all about my friends. Already mentioned them on the show. Dawe, the number 1 New Englander of the event, finishing 30th with a Calyrex Shadow team, using a triple offense Calyrex Shadow, Psyshock, Pollen Puff, and Astral Barrage. Along with the Calyrex Shadow, Dawe went and got pretty creative. Stealth Rock's Tinglu, Solo Dozo, Screamtail, AV Raging Bolt, and one of my new favorite Pokemon, Ogerpon Heartflame. This is a crazy team ran by one of the most unique and successful and creative team builders in the world right now.
Yeah, I've never seen a team from Dawe where I haven't just like had to like read through it 5 different times and like get excited at like a new little thing, like Terra Normal Screamtail, or the Stealth Rock Tinglu and how well that complements that Screamtail, and the Hearthflame. They are just so good at piloting. They completely destroyed me with that mon. And just seeing all of these pieces.
It's funny because the last time I played Dawe, I was able to take them out with a Heartflame Ogerpon, and so they were about 2-3. It was the only Pokemon that were the same was the Calyrex, and they were running Calyrex Shadow Tinglu back then. All of the other I don't believe that they had the Dozo, but all of the other mons were the same. And the Ogerpon did a number into them, and I probably did not play a part in why they brought it, but I'm going to say I brought a part by showing out with the Ogerpon Heartflame and just showing how dumb the calculations get with this Pokemon too.
Yeah, you used that mon to start the fire,
Yes.
And it ended well with an incredible top 32 finish from the homie.
Yeah,
this is such an interesting team, and as I mentioned, I'm literally looking at this more. Body Press Dozo.
Yep.
Like, hello.
Yep.
There's so much going on here, and it's all awesome.
Yeah. I know that specifically for the Tinglu, I asked about Stealth Rocks, and Dawe said Stealth Rock is the best move on Tinglu. I clicked it so much. It's so awesome. And it is because you can create those traps with Tinglu and Screamtail where you set the Stealth Rocks up, and now you're forcing these Encore Disable switches where you're either going to do nothing and just sit there, or you're going to switch and take some damage. And it just gets the Stealth Rock just is enough chip to get yourself into position where you can click Astral Barrage, get your Grimnay boost, and just snowball from there. Again, an amazing team, an amazing finish by not only just an amazing player, but an amazing person.
I also wanted to add that it's not only the Screamtail on this team, but it's also the Yawn Dondozo.
Yep.
And it's also the Electro Web Raging Bolt. These are all things that on a team, like, it's going to incentivize that pivoting game. And then Stealth Rock Tinglu just bullies that so hard. You want to switch in your Ensign? Like,
Go
boom,
ahead.
it just lost a quarter of its health.
Yeah.
Sorry. Put on some heavy duty boots
Yep,
next time.
we're playing singles now. Everyone break out your Iron Valiants.
Oh man,
Yes,
but
and
yeah,
also,
what an incredible
yep,
finish.
and also just to put it out there, this was, I believe, the only Tinglu and the only Dozo to make day 2, and if not the only ones, they were the highest rated ones. I could tell you that this is the only Sandy Shocks and one of the only Umbreons that we saw. Sam Pletcher, another New Englander. Sam, congratulations on giving the entire region a heart attack by deciding that you were just going to leave your world's invite to NAIC. Great job performing and not breaking our hearts.
Oh yeah, this man was like, I remember seeing him at a local like the week before LA. He couldn't make it to LA because there was actually a wedding going on, I believe, in LA that same week, and
Yeah.
he couldn't come to the regional. And so he was playing. He didn't have the run that he wanted, but he was running that Koraidon and figuring it out. And the day after at Balance Patch, he was casting. But when he wasn't casting, I was sitting with him and we were running like calcs with the team. And I'm like, I believe that I suggested Umbreon to him, and he was like, that's kind of interesting. And I'm really glad that he went in that direction. It was like right after LA. I'm like, have you thought about it? He's like, yeah, I don't really need it, because I think at the time he was on like Tinglu with the
Yeah.
Koraidon. But seeing this Umbreon set, and specifically the Moonlight on a Sun team, is a really cool angle for this thing. It has like Sam. I've always seen him as this builder that like just adds a little bit of spice to things. I remember at Orlando we were talking about, because we were on a long drive back from like one of those Fall River locals. We were going to Boston to get dinner with everyone after, and he just he was like, I'm just gonna run Salamence, and I'm like, okay. He has like these really interesting meta calls that in this case work out really well, and that was so cool to see. Like, I'm so proud of this finish.
Yeah. The Umbreon, and this is what you've talked about, like all these weird mons. We have the Umbreon theorem at Littleroot lessons, and it's always amazing to see an Umbreon do well and be as the namesake of the theorem. And I believe Sam was the only person to bring the Umbreon, and also the only person to bring Sandy Shocks to the event. Life Orb Sandy Shocks with Volt Switch, Earth Power, and Thunderbolt Terra Water, just able to do so much damage when you're boosted in the sun by photosynthesis, tossing on that Life Orb boost as well. And it kind of is a mini Miraidon to an extent in the sun, where between the boost via your ability and the Life Orb, that Volt Switch, you're going in, you're really chunking something, if not knocking it out, and then you're getting out. Because the big issue with Sandy Shocks is that its defense is this. Not only is its defensive typing poor, but its defensive stats in general aren't that great. So to be able to get itself in and out, be a pivot for this team, honestly, be a way where you can pivot out the Sandy Shocks, get your Rillaboom in, and now you're going and threatening Fake Out the following turn. Like, you're able to, or just get the Koraidon back in, set the sun back up. You're able to do a lot of stuff with the Sandy Shocks that's really cool.
Yeah. I think another thing about this team that I really wanted to point out, I remember in talking with Sam, I was like, hey, what's your matchup into Ice Rider? And he's like, Grassy Seed, Terra Water, Golden Go. I'm like, you're what?
Yeah.
I was like, at first thought, I was like, and then I was like, hold on, because being able to kind of just like wall out the Ice Rider Amoonguss, like, you don't care about that Spore. You can freely set up, and with a +1 defense in the Terra Water, you're resisting the Glacial Lance, and you don't really care about high horsepower. So being able to just completely sit on those teams is so crucial. And I think that's like, I can speak for that. That's why that's there. And I think it's a really interesting call.
Yeah, it definitely. I was trying to figure out, I'm like, why does he not lefties? And then you said, when you brought up that Ice Rider action, I'm like, this thing at +1 defense wins the Ice Rider matchup, and especially because you have the terrain there, so you're still getting those those boosts. You get a couple nasty plots up. The Make It Rain and the Shadow Ball are going to do so much damage into the Calyrex Ice. You're forcing it to Terra out, and even if it Terra's out of the Ice typing, it's going to still be in most cases still be neutral into into the Shadow Ball, and in some cases also neutral into the Make It Rain. And once you hit +4, again, your calculator is thrown out the window. This is a Pokemon that can just get enough boosts to say, I don't care about what you're trying to do. I'm doing my thing. You're going to live with it, and that's that. And I mean, Sam had an amazing day 1, only needed to go 6-3, ended up going 8-1. Day 2 wasn't as strong as we expected, but a lot of like great techs, even the Stellar Terra Stellar Terra Sash Flutter Mane. There we go. That's a
tongue twister.
It is a tongue twister. So it's like a lot of great techs to just add a little extra damage where usually people aren't going to expect it, add a little extra bulk where people aren't going to expect it, and then you throw on the surprise factor of most people haven't practiced against an Umbreon, and especially against the Sandy Shocks. So all of that combined got Sam, I believe in his first season, a Worlds invite, which is just absolutely amazing, and is just another example of the talent and very stacked talent in the New England region.
Yeah, you guys don't want to start that locals discourse again. I will say,
I was going to say not that we're going to start the locals discourse. Now that Worlds is finished, just going through a project that Jay Wani, who tracks all of the North American Worlds invites, him and I are going to be teaming up to pretty much figure out which players who got Worlds invites are from which region. And then we're going to pretty much off of that be able to kind of do a tier list of, hey, this region went and like, okay, New York is good. They like Tri-State's great. They sent like 30 people to Worlds out of like however many. But that's something that I'm looking forward to doing with everything.
I'm very excited to see that.
Yeah. So do you have any final thoughts on the tournament? Final thoughts on the metagame as a whole? Where you think we're going to be going once we get to Worlds, or at least what that?
I think the really interesting thing about this format is it feels like every week something new is succeeding, and it's like I remember LA 0 Terrapagos were in cut. Here there were 2.
Yep.
It's just kind of been like seesawing between the restricteds that are like very obviously dominant and then like a surprise pick for that weekend. We see the unfortunate fall off of Zamazenta, but I know that thing's just going to be right back at Worlds.
Yeah.
And I think the most successful people are the people who are running this genre of team that we've been exploring, you don't know your calcs, but I know mine.
Yes.
And having all of these sort of like off meta, like damage mitigation picks, these item picks, these Mon picks that are just the right amount of spice to kind of throw people's lines into shock and they don't know what to do. And so I'm really excited to see what that's going to look like in a couple of months. We've got a long road until there, but I'm really looking forward to it. And I'm very, very grateful that I could be on this podcast to talk about it with you.
Well, thank you for being here, and thank you for filling in at such a short notice as well. This was a fun one. Of course. Okay, so before I do my closeout, which I have to remember what we say and what we do, this is going to be ugly. I always open, and it's not great, but it's always fun. But Jay always closes. So I'm going to have to remember this. While I remember, plug your stuff. Where can people find you?
So I'm on Twitter, kind of funny sometimes when I tweet, at Konq, KonqVGC. That's where you can find me. That's just about it. Okay. I'm looking to make more of a name for myself in my second season, competing next year.
I see you're going to have a bright future. We all are. Once we get those regional locations and we find out that it's all New England.
Oh please! We got nothing.
We're going to get one. I hope what's going to happen is we're going to get one, and it's the weekend I'm getting married. So you're welcome.
Thank you.
And you can find me at VGC. You can find all of us at Littleroot Lessons at LR Lessons. You can, of course, find us all of our information on our socials, our YouTube page. You can listen to the podcast on Apple Music and Spotify. We also do non-podcast episodes as well. We have the Littleroot Record. We have Carter's scripted, like Genlock, his adventure through the generations of Pokemon via Nuzlocking them all. And of course, we have Jay's absolutely amazing Draft League content as well. So make sure to give us like and follow, comment on the episode, what you think your favorite part of NAIC was, and why Pelipper was the true star of the entire season. Shout out to, if you'd like to support us more, you can support us on Patreon, just like the wonderful patrons Johnny Bravo Sr. and Papa Swish, or you can support us on as a Discord supporter, just like Smeargle. And with that, I think I have everything, and if I don't, read the show notes with everything in them. Thank you very much,
You
everyone.
did a great job.
And thanks, Keon. Thank you very much, and enjoy your weeks. Bye.
Bye-bye.